Kanye West, Kanye Wizzle, Yeezy, Jesus. Oh, do you guys know about the situation?
I do. Kanye West.
Have you heard what he said?
I've heard what he said. I've not heard everything.
He said a few things.
But I've heard a lot of the things he has said. He even said something along the lines of white men have a hard time in society. Like, they can't say nothing. He said white men can't say something negative towards a black person, otherwise they're labelled racist. They can't say anything negative towards a woman or to a gay person, otherwise they're going to be labelled homophobic. They are the most targeted or restricted of all races and sexes. He said that. What do you man feel about that?
Do you know it is? In terms of the racism thing, I hear that, because the homophobic thing is, it doesn't, you get me, it doesn't
applies to all
race. Yeah. It applies to all. The racist thing, I hear that, but it's a double-edged sword. Do you get me? And you, like, statements like that, you can't, it's like you can't almost have an opinion on it. Because either way, you're wrong. Like, you could be perceived wrong. Either way. But
he says that they can't do nothing.
They can do. It's true. It's wrong. The same as wrong.
Do you get it? Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
You can see
where he's coming from.
Where we think he's coming from, maybe. Because
that's the thing with Kanye, bro. It's the way how he diss raps it.
At this point, I actually don't know if I can say, I know where he's coming from. Because sometimes, some of the things he says, I'm like, brother.
No, he goes off tangents a lot. He does go off on tangents.
And I was listening to
he may have a point that he goes off.
There was like a live YouTube stream. Okay. Him doing it was like a podcast, an interview with some like people that have a manufacturing company in it. I think he's trying to pattern up the Yeezy thing, trying to make sure it's still straight. You know,
right.
You don't know about Adidas though, right?
Yeah.
That's peak.
So what's it called? On that, like the guys, so the people that was interviewing, it was one white guy and one white woman. And I think the white guy is the guy that runs the manufacturing thing, and the woman might be her show or like her platform or whatever, innit? But basically the guy's like, yeah, man, like, Kanye, you're just a big inspiration to me, And that made me think, like, fair enough is a good thing to say, you get me? And Kanye has inspired so many things, music, culture, to like best technology, fashion. He has inspired bare stuff, but that's the good side of Kanye. But there is clearly also a bad side. But I'm thinking, you know what? These are the type of people that would get attention. Like, he is weird, but it's like, because of the way he is, so because he's so like outspoken, and so like erratic, people, or let's just say white people, can associate themselves with him to say, oh, I know black culture. Do you get it? Or like say, oh, yeah, like I know black culture, which he is a part of black culture, but he's just showing you the bad side. You get me? This is not the side where we're like, oh, like we're trying to push
and promote,
you get me? And promote. Because there's people that's like, I don't know if you saw about the Nazi group that's basically supporting what he said about the anti-Semitic quotes that he was saying. But when you start attracting certain types of crowds, you have to look at yourself and be like, whoa.
Facts.
You get me? Am I really on the right track? Because it's mad. But there is an element of truth in what he's saying, but it's so extreme.
It's ridiculously extreme.
Do you get me?
I feel like with Kanye, it's like, yeah, because a lot of people were saying like this is like a trick, like he's trying to get out of all of his contracts and things of this nature. I don't believe that. I don't feel like that's something that he wanted to do. However, it's bars. Yes, some of what he was saying, there was elements of truth in it, but at the same time, it's like he knew what he was doing. Like, you know, you can't say stuff like this. We already had this conversation even on the pod years ago. I think it was in your garden. Like, we was talking about we got to do better. We got to make changes. We got to do things on our own, because people in the Jewish community bro, they control all this stuff. Like they literally control all. I ain't gonna try gas cans and stuff. Fuck that. You get me? Hey Nick, niggas looking at me like, hey Nick, he's up now.
No, but
he had his point on that.
Did you see that? The one they had that one Jewish executive.
Yeah, on the Breakfast Club.
Yeah.
I watched that whole interview, by the way.
They said themselves.
He basically said, did you see that as well? So that Lowen Cohen or something, what was his name? He's very, very known in the music industry, and he's been in the music industry for years. And he's one of those people that owns a record label. So they were basically asking him like, okay, so you know that these things are wrong in terms of like, let's say like drugs and shootings and alcohol abuse and all these types of things, drug abuse. So why do you sign artists that promote that? And then he was like, listen, I've got to make a living. Do you get me? I know it sounds a bit crazy,
I got people to feed.
but I got people to feed.
That's what he said.
That's what he said, and it was
actually that's actually refreshing to hear somebody actually say the truth. Yeah, I keep it very, very real.
And that's what that is, and that's kind of what Kanye was trying to tell everyone. But he knows he can't say that though.
He can't say it
because he still come off.
He can't say it the way
he said it.
Kanye is like a killmonger. He's them villains, yeah. That deep down, what they're trying to do is the right thing, but the way they're going about it is not the right thing. Do you get me?
Yeah.
Like Kanye is literally like a killmonger, like
righteous, straight in
like
there.
like that villain arc, but he's not really a villain. He's just perceived as a villain.
Yeah.
Do you get me? But it's like the outer shell is the villain, but inside he's actually a good guy. Who
100.
got some bad stuff that happened to him, and he's trying to.
The points he's making, like we said, like bro, they own the Jews. They own literally everything.
But it's mad, yeah, because look at the backlash that's happening. Yeah, look at the backlash that's happening. Man, man's getting dropped from Balenciaga.
Is this a backlash of people not deep in it and just seeing the surface level of it? Because we can also see, we can dig within. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like as podcasters, we're good at that.
You're right.
Commentators, we're good at that. We can dig within. Because man's not going to feel like, raw, man said this about the black community. Fuck that. Man ain't done with him. Like, we're actually able to still look within. Because I also feel like when a lot of people just cut off ties and when a lot of people make these comments. Like, even right now, what we've done, we've dissected.
No, but this...
I'm just saying, not even just we, but like just people have just taken time. Like, I'm talking about numbers. There's always going to be people that's going to be like, he's stupid, he's a fool, and this and that.
Yeah, no,
I'm like, I feel you. But your perception could also change if you look at a deeper level of it.
Yeah, 100%.
Because if you look on the surface and maybe you see what the news reports have said, or maybe you just see what a friend has said to you, oh, well, he's gone mad. What kind of rubbish is that?
But then this is the double-edged sword that I was talking about, yeah. Because without doing that, or without that happening, you don't see the bigger picture or the bigger problem. And for me, I don't know if you might share this point, but for me, the bigger problem is what Nick said, the amount of power that the Jewish community has. And that's calm. You can have that much power, and we're seeing it in action now. But cool. Kanye said something mad. What's it called? Balenciaga's dropped him. His talent agents dropped him. He's not he's lost. I think he's not a billionaire no more.
Yeah. So the thing is with that is that his billionaire status has come from his business with Adidas
with the
and
assets
Yeezy.
that his name's attached
so
to.
Of course, if you're set up with Yeezy and that's attached with Adidas, your deal is worth a B.
Not that you have that in liquid.
Yeah. So essentially, it's like you are a billionaire, but it's not like you got actually like $1 billion in like liquid, like Jonny said.
There's actually hardly any the billionaires out there that we know of that actually have $1 billion account.
Yeah,
it's just what their assets are worth, innit? It's like they're worth a B. I'm at B status. Cool, I'm a billionaire now. You get me?
Yeah.
So with that, because Yeezy, Adidas have basically gone out, cool. No, we ain't fucking with homie no more. Technically, he's out of the billionaire status, and I think he said that. I think he said if he leaves Adidas now in the interview. He said, if he leaves Adidas now, I could be basically surrendering my billionaire status. And he was like, that's okay. I'll have to go away for a bit and hustle, but like I'll be back type shit. But it's mad. And the fact that that's happened, I'm gonna let you continue your point, bro. But the fact that that's happened, it does show that, bro, you can be no matter what. And the scary thing for us, especially as young black guys, not scary, but it is a bit daunting. No matter how high we get, bro, we can still just get patterned and be like, no, actually, take everything away. And of course, money isn't everything and not business isn't everything. But if you put in 20 years of your life, 15 years of your life, 30 years of your life to force something to get to a certain level and it gets taken away like that, you're going to look back and be like, wait, no, this is some other shit.
Yeah.
Do you feel me?
And I think it all stems back to ownership of, you get me, anything, ownership. And like, you get a lot of like black financial literates and people who promote like, you get me, financial knowledge. One thing they all is semantic across all of them. I'm going to use a lot of big words today.
Quick game.
Ownership. Do you get me? Owning your assets, whether it's your house, whether it's, you get me, a business, whether it's whatever, but ownership. Because at the end of the day, Kanye has his name, this brand is like, he's the face of Yeezy, but look at everything out of this, look at all of the backlash. It shows you like he wasn't really owning anything. Do you get me? And he always kind of, if you hear his like deeper interviews, he always talks about or complaining about, yeah, like, listen, this is all great, but bruv, they're not giving me the actual a fair, you get me, cut of the pie. Like, I want more. Like, you get me, how much work I put into it. I think he was arguing with Adidas because they didn't give him creative control over Yeezy, his own brand. They're not giving you full creative control. And then that's why I think he went to make a different deal with Gap.
And that's where, and it's interesting now to hear about, remember the text messages that I read about he was sending to his friend saying he was jealous of Virgil. That may have been something that was way bigger than what it may have seemed, and not just the Louis Vuitton deal and the Louis Vuitton job. It's the fact that Virgil actually built a brand of Off-White where it's like, no, people actually go into Off-White to buy Off-White. When do niggas go and buy Yeezy from the Yeezy store? You get
there is
me?
no, is there? I don't even know if there's a Yeezy
That's
store.
what, exactly.
But
and no one ain't buying no, what's that? Oh, the Tops Yeezy, bro. Or the Charles Yeezy. That Calabasas shit. None of that shit popped off ever. It was always to do with what he was doing at Balenciaga or what he was doing at Yeezy and with Gap and with Adidas. It was never his thing that he built, and you got that. No, yes, Off-White, the Off-White trainers went crazy, and the Jordans and the Dunks, and that's all mad, cool. But you can still go to Off-White itself and buy yourself a nice shirt or jumper and everybody, and that is going to be
no
Virgil's
associations, no affiliations with all of these.
nothing. Louis could have left Off-White, Nike could have left Off-White and left Virgil. We still pulling up to Virgil's spot to go buy some Off-White.
Yeah.
Whereas with Yeezy, it's like, okay, what are you gonna do now? Like, you're gonna make clothes and that, and because all that clothes stuff you tried to drop in 17 or whatever it was, all that holy shit. No one bought that shit, bro. Everyone's bought the kicks. So how are you going to develop? And that's another thing about that ownership that Jonny's speaking about. No point did this is mad. This is deep because it goes back to Sway. Sway said, "Why don't you do it on your own? Like, you don't need these, like,
Man
these
kept
lot,
saying it.
Nike and Adidas." He said, "You ain't got the answers, Sway. You ain't got the answers." Like, because that's what Sway was telling him. He was like, "Why don't you just go do your own thing? Like, why do you need help from all these other brands?"
But I think he does need help because of who he is, because of the way he is. For example,
like his mental state. And
even look at his music career. He has needed help.
writers and that.
Even despite like the writers, I'm talking about he's like, you could argue he's like pushed and grabbed opportunity, but
are you saying he's always been like a collaborator? Like he's always been someone
like
that
for example, like
within.
within the music industry, how many times has Jay-Z had to vouch for him, or how many times Jay-Z had to come in? I think there was a time where Jay-Z even gave my money down. Jay-Z like loaned him out. You get me? How many times? Because not to say that he can't do it, but he keeps putting himself in the position of his me against the world, and it's making that harder for him. Do you get me? It's making it harder. Like, I remember he went to do a thing with, when we first started Easy, he was doing it with Nike. That didn't really pop off. And then I think when he cancelled or Nike dropped him or something happened, he was just talking bare smack about Nike all the time. And especially when he joined Adidas, it's like he grew hatred for Nike. I'm like, bro, stop making about other people. Stop creating problems. Just focus on your thing and do it. Do you get me? No one has to be the villain in your life. There doesn't even have to be a villain. But he's always got this, but you don't get, like the Sway thing, you don't have the answers. It's like, you don't know, it's them against me. Like, he's always put himself in that bucket.
Category,
that category. Even like when he was coming up as a producer, he's like, oh, they don't rate me. They don't think I got, bro, forget that. just hustle, just do your thing without all the the backlash.
I think maybe it's also because of that genius complex he has, where it's like you don't understand, and it's like we said in the last episode, we understand, we can get why he sees it, because everything he's done, he's always proved people wrong, of course, and he's always fighting these barriers. But maybe it's also that same fighter's mentality where it's like him and Virgil coming into fashion, they weren't accepted, and they still didn't accept it from the very jump when they jumped in. And up until now, even with the collabs and whatnot, they were still higher fashion designers who still didn't want Kanye and didn't want Virgil at all. So it's kind of that fighter's mentality where it's like, I'm a prove him,
But this is why I talk about ownership, because if you own something, you don't need to get permission from anyone
to do anything.
You can just get up and do. If you want to change your whole creative direction, you can get up and do that.
And I feel like there's self-doubt in that, because with Kanye, he probably didn't think that he could be as big. So for example, like he didn't think that, he didn't sit there and think, yo, I could actually make Yeezy just as big as Nike and Adidas. Like if I just put the work in, like find a way to do the shoe, find the boost materials, find this, find that, and actually create something himself, dolo, and basically try and quote unquote take them on.
I'll tell you why.
Go.
This is my big punchline of the whole thing. It's because of our community, fam. Because of our community. Our community is kind of fickle, but it's fake in the sense in the sense that we're only gonna ride you when you're up.
He's spitting.
We're only gonna ride you when you're up. As soon as you find out some funny shit, your own people will turn against you.
When you say your own, like,
so
funny shit, like how?
Let me tell. Alright, cool. There's a few examples. Yeah, the big. Alright, cool. I'll start with the small example, because the big examples, man. The smaller examples. I don't know if you saw certain like artists started to tweet like indirects against Kanye.
Oh yeah.
In terms of how he's moving now, I think that.
So Lil Duval's
one. I can't remember. Like, just a lot of people who are like, you know what? Yeah. Whether Kanye is right or wrong, still offer him your support.
Yeah.
Or at least offer to help. Do you get me? To help him out. To like, you know, when that thing of when you see your boy doing something wrong, correct? Like, support him in public, correct him in private.
Yeah.
Do you get me? And I don't know if a lot of people try to do that with Kanye. Maybe he's a difficult character to deal with, where he might not listen a lot. But that's just like, that's been our community. If you look at every time certain things has happened to like key people, boom, their support goes down, the number of streams go down, their revenue, like we get attacked. So how can we as a community ever stand strong and support each other or have ownership over something, and we don't support each other long enough for this to happen? Like, we look at again, using the Jewish community as an example, and don't think this is something that would maybe just start from the Nazi times. This started from way back. In terms of how strong and together they are. They have, as a community, I don't even call them a race, because you can be whatever race and be Jewish. But
as a people,
they've faced so much struggle together. But one thing they've always stuck together. Always. You can even look at black people and racism. There's been cases where you heard stories where, again, you get me, you get the colonizers come to Africa, and then black people are selling their own people to get like weapons and
just to get up.
You get me?
Yeah, and that was one thing. And when I watched The Woman King, it really spun me as well.
You get me?
And people are living with profit of the traders who are literally selling your own people.
Selling your own people,
but you're breaking bread with these guys that you're on the same level. But these times, your wealth empowerment is literally at the detriment of your own people. That spun me a little bit, but it was a history lesson.
It's
for
a
me.
deeper. Let me change.
Yeah, it's dark.
Yeah, it's a deeper level, yeah, and it's so deep, yeah. It's almost controversial in a sense that, like, it's what's the word when something is not proven to be right yet? Like
up
aliens.
to interpretation or something.
No, like aliens. You know, the concept of aliens,
like a myth.
Yeah, it's almost like a myth, because it's like the facts are there, but not everyone's willing to admit that, you know what, as a people we could do better. And it's been happening, like I said, it's deep rooted. It's been happening from way back. The Jewish people, fam, I'm talking about, because in the Bible, the Jewish people are described as the most blessed people. Do you get me? Because they've had that promise of like the promised land from. I don't know if you know the story about Moses when you get me. I don't know. Have you watched The Prince of Egypt?
No, I haven't. No.
Hard movie, bro.
So basically, there was a prophet Moses. He was a. So I'll tell the story in it. So he was a Jew, yeah. But there was a time where the Egyptians were the society in power, like how you have the Romans. There was the Egyptians' time to rule.
But this is before Moses knew who he was.
Do you
Anyway.
get me?
Yeah.
He was adopted into the family.
What the king, so the Egyptian king, done, because they got a prophecy that there's gonna be I can't remember.
It's a plague.
No, not the plague, but there was gonna be a prophecy that sound like basically something really, I can't remember, and people are gonna look at me like, you should know, but I can't remember. But something really good was meant to happen to the Jewish people. I think like they're gonna be in power, something like that, innit? And then the Egyptian king heard this prophecy, and he said, you know what? I'm gonna do something about it. And you get me, you can forgive him for doing that because you're doing what you think is best for your people, innit?
Yeah.
He's like, you know what? No one's come to rule Egypt. It's gonna be Egyptians that's gonna be staying in power forever. So what he done, he ordered something. He said, you know what? We're gonna kill every firstborn son, every firstborn Jewish son in the land. So he ordered that. So all the Egyptian army went around to order the Jews. And at the time, some Jews were living in Egypt, or most of the Jews were living in Egypt. Yeah, it will make more sense when you look at the actual map. It will make more sense, and even to the conflict in Israel to today, you understand it's all stemmed back from them days. Yeah, so the Egyptian king made an order, said go kill all the firstborn sons, Jewish sons of each family. So again, they went around killing all because I think the prophecy was like there'll be a king, a Jewish king or something like that. That'll be the firstborn son or something like that. And then there was a Jewish family, and that's Moses' family. So what they done is they basically put Moses in like a cradle, like a basket cradle, and rowed him down the boat, rowed him down the river.
Yeah.
And it happened to be someone from the Egyptian king's house was like bathing or doing something in the river at the time, and he saw a baby coming down. So as all of the other firstborn children were killed, sons getting killed off, Moses, luckily, you get me, got away through deliverance, and then basically the queen. So I think it was the queen's like
Queen adopted him.
Yeah, but I think it was like the queen's like help or something like that. Yeah. Adopted, like found Moses and brought it to the queen, and then the queen adopted him, and the queen raised Moses as one of her sons. Yeah. So without knowing, the king is the person who he's basically, because he said he wanted to kill Moses as a child, but he didn't know who Moses was. So he just ordered a hit to all of the things. So the person he ordered to kill is now
in their family.
Family, growing up, living the privileges of an Egyptian prince. Yeah. But he was a prince, basically, he became a prince. And he grew up with the next king of Egypt, which was the Pharaoh's son. Yeah. And they were bare close. But then
practically like brothers at that point.
Yeah. But he always looked kind of different as well. And Jews are kind of different, especially when they were in Egypt. They had like a darker complexion to like normal Egyptians, innit? So they had like obviously the features of what people associate with Jews, and that started to be used in like in a bad way. But he didn't look the same, so he never even really felt like he fit in. Because as far as he knows, he's growing, like he's a baby. He didn't remember all that things that happened. Yeah. So he's just growing up in the palace, good education. So to him, he's growing up as a prince, but he just doesn't. There's something in it that doesn't make him feel like he belongs here. Yeah. And then basically, what happened? Long story short, I think he accidentally killed a Jewish guard, and he felt like bad, like really bad. And then I think he wanted to try to run away. He was like I've done something bad, because now he felt like I've killed man. He didn't know what it was, but he felt like I've killed one of my own people. He didn't know what it was, but he felt really bad about it, and he was getting like epiphanies of like, listen, like I think God was speaking to him, trying to expose who he really is to himself, innit? Yeah. And he basically fled. He basically ran away. There's another word for when like someone who's in a royal family runs away. I forgot the word, but yeah, basically run away, innit? But his brother tried to. So his brother was basically the next pharaoh, or who was the pharaoh at the time, innit? Was basically trying to stop him. He's like, listen, like I'm the king. If I said that didn't happen, it didn't happen. Like you don't need to go through any consequences, innit? He's like, nah, they couldn't have it. So he ran away. And he went in the desert. Basically, he was in the desert. He got lost somehow. Then through his time in the desert, he had the revelation that who he really is. He started understanding, but he had to go back to Egypt because that's where all of the Egyptians were. And at the time, all the Jews were. And at the time, Jews were slaves in Egypt. So all of the buildings, the pyramids that you see, all of the monuments you see today, all of those would have been built from the Jew, from back then. And so the Egyptians were using Jews as slaves. And basically, let's say his whole aim or mission was to free the Jews. And the promise from God was the Jews will have their own land called the Promised Land, it became Israel. So since then, and obviously in that story, it also talks about the journey from like Moses took them through the desert, when they split the Red Sea. You heard about all of that. All that split the Red Sea, and then they had to, and if you look at the map, like they had to travel through certain countries. I think they had to go through like Syria, all of these countries whilst they were like being pursued by the Egyptians. Because the Egyptians like, yo, you're taking away all our slaves, fam. So they're obviously trying to get them back. The story's a lot deeper now. I'm just trying to summarize. It's a very big story, innit? I'm trying to summarize it as quickly as I can. And then basically they got to Egypt. So it took them around 40 years to get to Israel. And if you basically Israel, there's a town in Israel where most of the Jews live. It's like the center of Israel. And then there's like a wall. I don't know if there's a wall, but basically there's a lot of fighting on the border of Israel. Because Israel's surrounded by a lot of countries, like other countries.
There's loads.
Yeah, and there's so much conflict on the borders, but Israel itself, they say, is one of the most peaceful countries in the world. Like you go to Israel, that center of Israel, and you wouldn't even imagine the amount of conflict around. And that's just to symbolize, like, you get me, God's promise coming true. This is their promised land. And there's a lot of fighting over our terrain. Like the people there saying, you guys don't belong here, but the Jews are like, listen, God promised us this land. That's why we're here. And they've been here from back then, since they moved there, you get me? And since then, everywhere Jews go or relocate to, they end up being quite successful. Do you get me? And that's that's what it says in the Bible. Jews are like very blessed people. But what I'm looking at is like, okay, cool. With all this movement, and this all stems or being supported by, because this would have never been possible if the Jews weren't so together. Do you get me?
Literally.
All of these things that they've achieved they basically came from not even being recognized as people to having their own country. Like their own country. And that country is one of the most peaceful countries in the world. Cool. So now let's flip it to black people. And I know in the back of my head, the thing that stopped me from saying is there'll be someone somewhere listening saying, why do you always have to make about black people? I was like, well, I'm black. You get me? I have to try. If you learn something good, you share it with your people. You get me?
Facts.
So Kanye's had this whole anti-Semitic quotes and all of that. The backlash from the Jewish community has forced all of these other bigger brands to start cutting ties with them, dropping them. Now think of all of the quote-unquote racist comments towards black people that's happened from people in higher places and stuff. And if you think of what's the backlash that's happened to them, as a community, have we been able to put enough pressure? So imagine every black person, Luis Suarez, use racist to Evra. Every black person said, you know what, Luis Suarez is sponsored by Adidas. As a black people, we're going to stop messing with Adidas. We're going to stop feeding our money to Adidas. Do you think Adidas would have kept Luis Suarez on as a signed athlete?
Yes.
You think they still would?
Of course they would.
I would have as well.
Remember,
if we stop
as a people, yes.
Oh, you're saying if we
stopped.
Oh no. They'll have to get rid of it.
You'll have to.
They have to.
We're forcing their as a people.
Yeah.
Bro, the black spending
pound
power
is serious.
is mad. But
we're
basically
out here making hella money.
But we're spending it so quick.
But there's only one place it goes.
So maybe I can't see it because I just can't fathom that idea then.
Because fathoming the idea is definitely going to be tough for you to see it. But at the same time, you got to look at, imagine other communities, for example, like Jewish community, they can then work for everyone, for example. But then they're going into their communities as well as other communities to put money into, right? our communities, 9 out of 10, we're going to one set of people, and this is white people. Jewish people.
Can I get another
and that's
example?
It. We ain't going back to our
The Kanye one is their whole example. This is probably the biggest example in front of our faces here. One black person, I don't even want to call one black person. One person's gone against the same.
Well, no, really true. He's one person, especially with that influence, and especially that insight into fashion. He is really one person. I'm not even saying black person, but this.
Yeah, so take the race out of it, because we're just highlighting the strength.
Billionaire, one billionaire. He's a billionaire.
Yeah, and there's other billionaires that said mad stuff. There's been I can't remember. There was the executives. I can't remember of saying was it? No, it wasn't Gymshark. The CrossFit thing.
CrossFit.
The CrossFit. You know exactly the CrossFit guys.
Yeah. And
I can't remember what they said. What did they say? Was it racist or was it like sexist?
What happened?
Yeah, they said something.
And then even Matthew Fraser started cutting ties with the CrossFit owners and that.
What?
The CrossFit games don't exist no more. The people that run the whole CrossFit movement. CrossFit still exists, but CrossFit games. I think they they try bring it back, but it's a different.
Oh, at the time it didn't.
Yeah, it's a different ownership. It went. I can't remember what they said, but I can't remember if it was racist or sexist. I think it was sexist. But
I don't know. I'm doing it. Don't worry, bro.
Oh, cool.
But that's another example where you offend enough people, or you offend enough people that stay together, you're gonna suffer the consequences. But as a black people, it's always temporary. Yeah. It's always like,
let me just go back to that point that you just brought as an example in it. So, CEO of CrossFit CEO Greg Glassman basically resigned after the offensive tweets that was made towards George Floyd and coronavirus. So obviously again, so he obviously was the founder of the brand CrossFit itself and the CEO of it as well. But like you said in his tweets, of course, he put out racism as a public health issue. Then he also said it's Floyd-19, also just between this back in 2020 anyway. So yeah. And then also he went on to say your failed model quarantined us, and now you're going to model solution to racism.
Okay, cool.
So all of this stuff here is basically like your example.
Cool. So cool. So then man was a little bit wrong. So the CrossFit Games continued. He just stepped down.
Yeah.
But if that was a different situation, if that was, let's just say, a Jewish, he offended Jews.
CrossFit Games will be done.
CrossFit Games is over.
You have to create something.
It's over.
Yeah,
but the consequences is only as strong as the people that you're
why is it over? Why is it over?
Bro, look what's happened to I'm just saying, look what I'm talking
Jewish wise.
Yeah.
Why is it over if it's not a black community?
No. I'm just saying, if let's say what he said, he tweeted something offensive towards Jews.
Yeah.
Look at Wiley.
No, 100. But his thing is basically saying it's a white brother and it's CrossFit, it's a company, he's got whatever.
Yeah.
How does his thing get taken away from him? How I can answer that question would be the brands associated with CrossFit
that's what
will then start pulling. Therefore, there's no money.
There's no funding.
Who's behind the brands?
What do you mean
behind the brands? 9 out of 10, gonna be someone Jewish, bro. 9 out of 10.
So what I'm saying is, if it was a black-owned brand, I think it'd be the same thing too. But I also feel like, well, I'm saying that straight away, if he's gonna say what he's saying, a black-owned brand is gonna do the same thing as a Jewish brand.
What do you mean? What? Pull away?
Yeah, they're gonna be like, okay,
that's likely.
But my point is, because if you offend the Jewish community, the backlash is so strong. It's immediate. Whereas with black people, we have to protest, we have to do strikes.
You're saying